Samsung's history as a laptop maker is troubled. Its Additive, Notebook, and Odyssey lines were underwhelming, and in the late 2010s, the company consolidated its efforts into the Galaxy Book line. Instead of competing against the usual PC makers like Dell, HP, Lenovo, and Asus, Samsung decided to focus on more mobile-friendly machines. It prioritized thin and light designs, great displays, and added an onboard stylus, borrowing the features that made its smartphones the industry favorites they are today. With the Galaxy Book Flex, Samsung continues to demonstrate improved self-awareness by showcasing its superior display tech. The Flex is the first laptop with a QLED panel, which promises more colors, deeper blacks, and greater brightness. The laptop also comes standard with an S Pen and a wireless charging pad built into the trackpad. There are two models, 13-inch and 15-inch. I tested the smaller version, which costs $1349. The larger one, which also has 4 gigs more RAM, is just $50 more, and both are available today. If you're looking for a compact, stylish, and powerful laptop, these are worth considering. I gotta give Samsung props. The company has seriously stepped up the design of its laptops over the last few years. The Galaxy Book S and Galaxy Chromebook both had super sleek builds, and the Flex is no different. This thing is all clean lines and sharp corners with gleaming edges that give it a polished look. The deep royal blue of my review unit is refreshing too. I'm used to boring silver, black, or gray laptops, so my eyes welcome this change. Though it's impressively thin, the Flex feels solid and dense. It's still pretty light though, at just about 2.53 pounds. In comparison, the new MacBook Air and the Dell XPS 13 2-in-1 are both heavier at 2.8 and 2.9 pounds respectively. The Flex's 13.3-inch screen is surrounded by minimal bezels on the top, left, and right sides, with a fatter chin at the bottom. That thicker bottom bezel is still common in laptops, though Dell managed to do away with it in this year's XPS 13. Maybe the rest of the industry will catch up soon. Samsung still managed to squeeze a webcam above the Flex's screen, although it sadly doesn't support Windows Hello. Along the edges, you'll find a headphone jack, a microSD card reader, a push-to-release S Pen slot, and 3 USB-C ports, 2 of which are Thunderbolt 3 compatible. That's one more USB-C socket than the XPS and MacBook, with the Apple laptop lacking the card slot the other two offer. As a consequence of offering more connectivity options, the Flex is also slightly thicker than both those laptops. Still, it is compact enough to fit in most of my work bags, although it's not like I've been going out with a laptop these days. The Flex's standout feature is its QLED panel, and I'll be honest, I can't really tell the difference between a QLED and an OLED screen of the same size and resolution, and you might not either. That is to say, you won't have any complaints about the Flex's Full HD display in terms of color reproduction and vibrance. I watched several episodes of Amazon's new show Upload, and the rich autumnal colors in the leafy forest settings were stunning, and it was easy to make out details in even dimly lit scenes. My apartment gets a lot of light, so it can get difficult to see any laptop screen. The Flex is supposed to combat that with this outdoor mode by bumping up the brightness by an extra 200 nits to 600 nits. But switching this on via the keyboard shortcut only helped a little bit in direct sunlight. It was much more useful on a slightly gloomy day. I wish Samsung hadn't made this a mode that you switch on or off and instead offered it as a few extra levels on the built-in brightness scale. Sometimes I just needed a little bit more than the built-in max, but in those situations I had to use outdoor mode, which scorched my retinas. Still, it probably conserves battery to only bump up brightness by that much for short periods of time, rather than encourage you to use it for an extended stretch. Because the Flex is so slim, I was expecting the keys to be pretty shallow, but Samsung was able to offer a surprisingly deep amount of travel here. The keyboard is well laid out with no undersized buttons, save for the right shift key, which is a little less wide to make room for the fingerprint sensor next to it. My one gripe would be that the shift key on the left seemed a little sticky, and too often I would try to uppercase the first letter of a word and end up getting the first 2 letters instead. I would blame it on my lazy pinky, but I haven't encountered this on any other laptop. A quick note on the fingerprint scanner. It was fast and accurate, usually unlocking the laptop without delay. Since it's Windows Hello compatible, I also used it for authentication on programs like Google Chrome. While the placement is uncommon, most laptops place their fingerprint readers on the top right of the deck, next to the trackpad, or embedded into the power button, Samsung's choice didn't feel too odd. Below the spacebar sits the Flex's trackpad, which is fairly roomy given the laptop's small footprint. Smaller notebooks often have cramped trackpads, but the surface area here is generous. It's not as tall as the XPS 13s or MacBook Airs, but it offers enough vertical space. Aside from being large, the Flex's touchpad is also responsive and smooth, and gestures like scrolling or pinch to zoom worked well. One of my favorite things about Samsung laptops is the S Pen. Not only is it fun for drawing self-portraits or scribbling down notes, but it's also helpful for signing urgent PDFs. I just had to open the document, select Add a Note from the toolbar, and sign on the dotted line. The Flex offers the same onboard stylus as the Note 10. Don't expect the bigger, more pen-like version on the Galaxy Tab S series. Still, it's comfortable enough to use for hours while drawing a self-portrait. Fans of Samsung's Air Command menu on its Note phones will be pleased to know that it pops up here too when you slide out the S Pen from its slot. The Flex may look like a dainty machine, but it actually packs a powerful 10th generation Intel Core i7 processor. Oddly, my review unit came with 16 gigs of RAM, but you can only buy the 13-inch Flex with 8 gigs in the US. Meanwhile, the 15-inch model has the same CPU but 12 gigs of RAM. Bear in mind that this means that my experience, at least in terms of performance and speed, isn't going to be fully representative of what you can expect. With these guts, the Flex deftly dealt with my daily workflow of Slack, dozens of Chrome tabs, spreadsheets, and the inescapable Zoom calls that permeate our lives now. The laptop also kept up with my new at-home needs, like executing my podcast recording setup and uploading large files for review videos. I also played several rounds of League of Legends after rediscovering it, and the Flex never let me down. That is, until I decided to turn on Samsung's silent mode. This is meant to keep the laptop's fans quiet if you're bothered by them. It's pretty easy to activate, just slide a switch in the Samsung settings app. You don't have to go into boot mode to access it. I never found the Flex too loud, although I guess those trying to get work done in bed next to a light sleeper or just really hate white noise might. I did notice a significant decrease in sound when I turned on silent mode, although it also seemed to throttle CPU performance. When I tried to continue playing League after, the system lag made it nearly impossible. My character could barely make it to the first turret before I gave up and restarted with silent mode off. This is somewhat understandable. You can't really expect high-speed performance when the fans are turned off without the computer getting too hot. Silent mode is really only useful if you're truly bothered by the noise and aren't running anything too intensive. Thanks to the Flex's QLED screen and 69.7 watt-hour battery, Samsung promises up to 20 hours of runtime. In reality though, that number is a lot lower. Our video looping battery test drained the Flex in about 13.5 hours, which is better than the MacBook Air, but falls short of the XPS 13 2-in-1's 14.5 hour mark. In real-world experience though, I saw power levels plunge below 20% after 5 hours of heavy real-world use. To be fair, that did involve energy-sapping processes like video playback and more frenzied leak games. One of the new features of the Flex is its trackpad's built-in wireless charger that can deliver power to T-compatible devices. It's the same wireless power share feature that debuted on the Galaxy S10. You can't use the trackpad while you're charging something, which makes sense since something is literally obstructing the usable area. I'm not sure how helpful this feature is since wireless charging is typically too slow to be meaningful. Our producer tested this with a Pixel 4 XL for this video, but at home I used the Galaxy S20 Ultra. I watched as the S20 Ultra's battery level climbed painfully slowly from 79% to 85% in 20 minutes. For something smaller like the Galaxy Buds, I could see this being useful in a pinch, like if you're in an airplane and running low on juice. Otherwise, wireless power share isn't something I'll use a lot. Overall, I'm enamored with the Galaxy Book Flex. It's a very pretty machine with a nice display, powerful guts, and useful S Pen. But I just wish there were more configurations for each size to make the base price lower. Sure, $1349 for a Core i7 processor and 8 gigs of RAM isn't the priciest, considering the new MacBook Air tops out at $1199 for a Core i5, and the similarly spec'd XPS 13 2-in-1 costs a lot more at $1,700. But with the competition offering options starting at $999, that's tough to swallow. Still, if you're looking for a gorgeous, beefy notebook with a good screen and you don't need its battery to last forever, the Galaxy Book Flex is worth considering. More importantly, it proves it's time to take Samsung's laptops seriously again. For in-depth reviews of other laptops from companies like Dell, Apple, Microsoft, and HP, and just coverage about anything in the whole wide world of tech, make sure you subscribe to Engadget. As always, thank you for watching.